They announced it like a weather update. No speeches, no ribbon cutting. Just a calm anchor on the evening news saying a local biotech company was partnering with clinics to offer a free wellness booster called the Silence Serum. Not a cure, not a vaccine against any real disease. A nervous system tuner, the anchor said, for sleep quality, mood stability, and noise resilience. 3 words that sounded like comfort. By morning, posters were everywhere, a white drop icon on deep blue. The slogan stamped across bus shelters. Sleep. Smile. Silence. The clinic where I worked got a pallet of small gray coolers and a laminated one-pager that read like ad copy, no known side effects in big print. Mild tingling and small. I didn't draw injections. I ran intake. Clipboards. Insurance forms. Fresh pens in a jar. People came in with the same look I'd seen all year. Brittle around the edges. If it helps me sleep, they'd say. If it shuts my mind up for one night. And I'd nod and point them to room 3. The vials didn't look like anything special. Clear liquid with a faint shimmer when the light hit it just right. Like there was a heartbeat hiding in the glass. The reps told us it was a micro-compounded neuromodulator. They said it targeted the brain's background noise, restless hum that keeps you anxious, angry, awake. Think of it as turning down the static, one of them said, smiling too wisely. You'll be heroes. At noon, I stepped outside for air. Every ad board on the block had flipped to the drop icon. Even the coffee shop chalkboard had it sketched between latte specials. A man in a suit stopped at the poster, read the 3 words, and relaxed like someone had squeezed his shoulders. He didn't even go inside. He just kept walking. Looser, quieter. By late afternoon, the clinic felt different. The usual coughing, the clatter of the scale, the chatter in the waiting room had all softened. Patients spoke in low voices like we were a library. When the nurse called names, people stood as one, moving with this unhurried, synchronized grace that made my chest feel tight. No one scrawled angrily on their phones. No one argued about forms. They just complete. The first dose I watched up close was a college kid with circles under his eyes. He joked about pulling 2 all-nighters and asked if the serum would erase the week. The nurse swabbed his arm. The plunger went down. He flinched, laughed, then blinked too slowly, as if the room had changed shape. How do you feel? The nurse asked. He tilted his head, as if listening for a sound only he could hear. Quiet, he said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. It's so quiet. I wrote patient reports quiet on the chart and pretended that meant something good. By closing, the rep stopped by our desk with a carton of branded pens and a box of pale blue bandages. The color of the poster. Uptake's excellent, she said. Voice velvet. People are tired of feeling too much. We just help them rest. When she smiled, I noticed a smudge of faint silver where a wrist met her sleeve, like glitter that hadn't washed off. Eat post once. Catching the light. That night I walked home under the new street lamps. The neighborhood felt glazed. Dogs didn't bark. TVs behind curtains seemed softer. Voices rounded off. At my building door, I paused and looked back down the block. A man stood perfectly still at the bus stop, hands at his sides, staring at the ad board like it was telling him a secret. When the bus arrived, he didn't move. The doors opened, closed, and left him there, content. I lay in bed and tried to read, but my eyes kept sliding over the lines. The clinic's one-pager was still in my bag. I took it out and read the fine print under the cheerful logo. Temporary attenuation of signal and limbic and associative networks. I didn't know what that meant. I only knew the city felt like a room after someone hits mute. Sometime after midnight, I woke to my phone buzzing. A text from an unknown number. No contact name, just a blue drop icon, and 3 words. Sleep. Smile. Silence. When I looked again, the message was gone. My notification log was empty. My apartment was very, very quiet. In the morning, the waiting room was full before we even unlocked the door. By the 3rd day, the clinic was a hive. Not chaotic like flu season, but orderly. 2. Orderly, the line out front wound, neatly down the block. Every person standing the same distance apart as if marked on the sidewalk. Nobody muttered. Nobody scrolled angrily. Just a low shuffle forward, eyes glazed, hands loose at their sides. Inside, the change was harder to ignore. The waiting room used to feel like static sniffling, coughing, restless legs bouncing, kids whining. Now it felt like a church. Conversations dropped to whispers, then to nothing. Sometimes I'd look up from a chart and realize the whole room was staring forward in silence, waiting to be called. Not a twitch among them. The first side effect showed up in room 3. A woman in her 50s came back 2 days after her injection. She spoke softly, choosing each word like it was heavy. "I'm losing time," she said. "I'll put the kettle on, and suddenly, it's cold, and an hour's gone." My husband tells me I sat with him on the couch the whole time, but I don't remember it. The nurse took notes, smiled reassuringly, said it was probably stress. But when the woman left, she didn't check out at the desk. She just walked straight out the door, slow and steady, without a glance. I went after her to remind her about follow-up paperwork, but by the time I stepped onto the sidewalk, she was already halfway down the block, moving with that same smooth, unbroken stride, like she was following an invisible line only she could see. Another patient laughed when I asked how he was feeling. "Flat," he said. "Not unhappy. Not sad. Just flat. Like all the edges got sanded down." My wife keeps asking why I don't argue anymore. I tell her I don't need to. His smile was thin and automatic. At lunch, I checked the break room fridge. Someone had taped one of the blue drop stickers to the inside of the door. No name, no note, just the logo staring back at me every time I reached for water. That night I dreamed I was in the waiting room. Everyone sat with their hands folded, backs straight, faces blank. The walls hummed like an engine. When I woke, the hum was still there. It wasn't a sound exactly, it was in my bones. A resonance, as though the city itself was vibrating at a frequency only my nerves could feel. I tried telling myself it was just stress, that I was imagining things. But when I looked out my window at 2 a.m., I saw 3 people standing under the new lamps across the street, not talking, not moving, just standing shoulder to shoulder, eyes tilted up at the blue glow. They stayed until dawn. By the end of the first week, it wasn't just the clinic. The whole city felt muted. The coffee shop on the corner used to rattle with Neustein wands screaming, customers shouting orders, music leaking from someone's earbuds. Now when I stepped inside, it was IED. Every table was full, but nobody was talking. People sat perfectly still, sipping in unison, eyes fixed on nothing. Even the barista moved slower, her hands steady as she measured out grounds like she was following choreography. On this subway, difference was worse. Normally it was chaos, coughing, perfume, the squeal of brakes, a constant shuffle of bodies. That morning, the car was full, but silent. Everyone sat with their backs straight, hands resting on their knees, their heads turned toward the same ad panel above the doors. A glowing poster with the blue drop logo. "For your balance, for our future." I felt like I'd stumbled into the middle of a play I hadn't rehearsed for. The next day, something happened on the street. A man in a gray suit collapsed right on the crosswalk, like a puppet with its strings cut. His briefcase popped open, papers scattering. I rushed forward, instinct kicking in. But what froze me wasn't him lying. It was the crowd around us. Dozens of people stopped, turned, and watched. Not one moved to help. They just stared, eyes blank, faces calm, as if waiting for some silent signal. After a long moment, two figures in pale blue jackets, with no logos, no names, stepped out of the crowd. They lifted the man under his arms, dragged him to the curb, and loaded him into a white van idling nearby. The doors closed. The van pulled away. And just like that, the crowd broke formation. People turned, walked on, as though nothing had happened. The briefcase was gone. The papers too. When I got home, I couldn't shake the rhythm of their steps. Perfectly measured. All in sync, like they'd been trained. That night, I opened my journal to write it all down. I used to fill pages with details after my shifts, things that stood out. Now, when I put pen to paper, I stared at the page for nearly an hour. Nothing came. My head was full, my chest was tight, but my hand wouldn't move. The page stayed blank, and in the quiet of my apartment, I realized something else had gone missing. The city wasn't just silent anymore, it was synchronized. It was near closing time at the clinic. When I first saw him, an older man, maybe late 70s, leaning heavy on a cane. His chart said his name was Mr. Callahan, but half the paperwork was left blank. When I called him in, he didn't move at first. He just sat in the waiting room, eyes darting around, lips pressed thin. Everyone else was still, like mannequins lined up in neat rows. He was the only one fidgeting, the only one alive. When we finally got to the exam room, he closed the door behind him and whispered, "Don't log me in." I froze. "Excuse me?" He shook his head, urging. "They track who gets what. If you log me in, I'm marked." I started to protest, but then he leaned closer. His breath smelled faintly of tobacco. His voice was cracked, but steady. "You've heard it, haven't you?" he said. "The hum. In your bones. In your sleep." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He tapped his temple with one crooked finger. "The serum isn't medicine. It's a tuning fork. Makes you resonate. Makes you fall in line. That's why nobody fights. Nobody shouts. They're being held." My throat went dry. I thought of the man on the crosswalk, the van, the blank stares. Mr. Callahan's eyes flicked to the corners of the room, as if something might be listening. "You need to stay out of the blue. Don't walk under the lamps. Don't watch the ads. And for God's sake, don't let them put another dose in you." A sharp knock hit the door. I jumped. A nurse peeked in, smiling that new, too-wide smile. "Everything all right in here?" Before I could answer, Mr. Callahan squeezed my wrist hard. His skin was ice cold. His eyes locked onto mine. "Burn the key," he hissed. "Before it burns you." I had no idea what he meant, but when I looked down, I saw it. A small metal key pressed into my palm. I hadn't seen him hand it over. By the time I looked up, the nurse had ushered him out. The chair was empty. His chart was gone from the counter, like it had never existed. And when I opened my hand, the key was warm, almost pulsing. I couldn't stop thinking about the key. I left it on my nightstand, but even in the dark I swore it gave off a faint glow, like steel catching moonlight. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of people standing beneath blue lamps, heads tilted up, faces blank. By the next evening, I needed answers, so I set up my phone by the window, pointing straight at the street. At first, the footage looked ordinary. Cars rolling by, a couple walking their dog. The faint glow of the new lamps. But when I watched the playback, my skin went cold. Shapes were there that I hadn't seen with my own eyes. Tall, flickering silhouettes clinging to the edges of the light, like shadows stretched too far. They didn't move naturally. They pulsed, faded, reformed. And then, At exactly 2:30 a.m., 3 figures stepped out from under the lamppost across the street. In real life, I'd seen only emptiness, but in the video, they were their long-limbed faces, blurred like static, heads twisting toward the camera. My window. One of them raised an arm. On the screen, its hand stretched toward me, flat against the glass. I stumbled back, heart pounding. My room was empty. The street outside was empty, but on the screen, they were still there, staring. I tried to stop the recording. My finger wouldn't respond. The phone just kept rolling, seconds ticking higher, and then, over the static-filled audio, I heard it clear as if someone was standing right beside me. "Don't look away." I dropped the phone. The screen cracked. The video stopped, but the words still echoed in the room, low and steady, as if the walls themselves had spoken. When I finally picked the phone up, the recording was gone. Not just stopped deleted. No file. No trace. But when I checked the gallery, there was one new image. A single still frame. It was me, asleep in my bed, taken from the inside of the window. The next week, the change was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just my block or the clinic. The whole city had turned the same shade of blue. Every amber bulb was gone. Even the old neon signs above shops flickered weakly under the glow, like they were being drained. Nights felt colder, sharper, as though the air itself had thinned. And the people, they moved the same, everywhere I looked, crossing streets in identical strides, pausing at the same second when the light turned red, resuming in unison when it went green. No glances exchanged. No words, just motion, perfectly timed, like gears in a machine. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, but one night, standing in my window, I counted 47 pedestrians. Every single one blinked in rhythm. The same second, the same beat. News outlets ran bright, sanitized headlines. City achieves full conversion to Blue Drop program. But every article I clicked was gone the next morning, replaced with vague statements about urban harmony. When I asked coworkers about it, they smiled faintly, as if I'd complimented the weather. "It's progress," one of them said. Another just repeated, "It's balance for our future." The words felt rehearsed, scripted, and then people began to disappear. It was subtle at first. Mrs. Hayworth from the bakery, her shop shuttered overnight. The windows painted black. A kid from the subway station who used to hum to himself one day, he was gone, and no one remembered him at all. I started writing names down, terrified I'd forget to, but every morning, half the names were missing from the page. Not crossed out, not erased. Hust? Gone. When I finally tried to leave the city, I found every road out blocked, not with police or barricades, but with construction crews under the glow of towering blue floods. They worked in silence, pouring endless slabs of concrete. The highways never reopened. That night, staring out at the empty street, I realized something awful. It wasn't that the serum was spreading. It wasn't that the lamps were multiplying. It was that the world outside had already gone blue. It happened during a blackout. I'd been writing late, filling page after page just to keep my mind sharp, when the lights flickered once, twice, and died. For the first time in weeks, my apartment was wrapped in complete darkness. No buzz, no glow, just silence. I should have felt relief. Instead, my chest tightened, because through the window, one light still burned. A single blue lamp across the street. It wasn't faint like the others. It was brighter, pulsing, almost breathing. And beneath it, shadows gathered. Not people. Not anymore. Too tall, too thin. Their arms bending in ways that made my stomach twist. I stumbled back, but the glow leaked through the curtains, filling my apartment with that same sterile hue. The walls seemed to hum. My teeth rattled in my jaw. Then came the knock. 3 slow raps at my door. I froze, every muscle locked. My phone buzzed on the table. With shaking hands, I lifted it. A new message. No number, just for words. Don't look away. The knocking came again. Louder, rattling the hinges. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The glow outside brightened, flooding the room until even my shadow vanished from the floor. And then I heard them. Voices. Dozens of them. All around me, inside me, whispering in perfect unison. Join the balance. Join the future. The door handle turned. Metal scraped softly, slow and deliberate, and in the reflection of the darkened TV screen, I saw it. Something had already entered the room. Not through the door, not through the window, through the light itself. Its outline flickered, glitching, like reality couldn't hold it steady. Its face was featureless at first, a smear of static, until it started to shift. Into mine. The voices swelled until they weren't whispers anymore. They were a command, a demand. Don't look away. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. Every muscle felt locked, tuned to a rhythm not my own. The figure stepped closer, glitching with each movement, until its static face sharpened into mine. Smiling, wide and wrong, it reached out, and when its hand touched my chest, the air rippled. My skin burned cold. Suddenly, the walls of my apartment dissolved. I was standing outside, beneath the blue lamp. The street was empty, but the shadows leaned in, watching. Their faces flickered between strangers and neighbors I used to know. Mrs. Hayworth, the boy from the subway, the couple with the dog, all of them blank-eyed, mouths moving in sync. Balance. 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 I tried to scream, but no sound left my throat. The words caught in my chest like someone else was holding them down. Above me, the lamp buzzed louder, its glow thick as liquid, and inside the bulb, something shifted. Not filaments, not wires. Huge, unblinking, lidless, it rolled, finding me, and in its reflection, I saw myself, already standing with the others. Already blank-eyed, already whispering. The version of me beneath the lamp smiled wider, while the me still trapped inside tried to claw free. My hands hid invisible glass. My reflection didn't move. And then the voices stopped. The street was silent. The last thing I heard was the buzz of the lamp dimming to a whisper, as the eye inside it slowly closed. And I understood. It hadn't just been watching, it had been recording. If you've stayed with me until the end, you've already heard the silence. If this story unsettled you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more horror every week. Tell me in the comments, would you take the serum, or would you resist? And if you want to support the channel and unlock exclusive stories, the links are in the description. Until next time, keep your lights off, and don't listen too closely to the whispers.